All right, everybody, good evening. And this is Captain John and the Baird Man over there. And we have Mr. David McKee here. And I'm really interested in talking to David. So, David is he's a professional software developer and he's a motorcycle rally organizer. And I guess are you the founder, or how are you involved with RAM Rally? I know we're going to talk about RAM Rally tonight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's primarily the thing I'm involved in, but actually a guy by the name of Chris Martin over in Australia created it about 4 years ago. So right at the beginning of COVID. And I saw a YouTube video on it, and I lost my mind. I was like, I have to do one of these. And so I contacted him and I said, how do I do one of these in the US? And he and I worked together on it for quite a bit. And we actually did our first RAM Rally here in the US last October 21st in 2023.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Well, I see that there's one coming up in Tellico, where we also have our event in the fall. Y'all got one coming up in May. And I think y'all are at God, remind me the name of the campground. I know exactly where it is.
Well, we are doing one literally tomorrow at the Palmetto ADV Rally in Charleston.
Wow.
And then after that, we've got one in upstate South Carolina, and that's the one that I really the one that I kind of manage directly, And then we'll be doing what I think they call it, the RDV rally, the one that's been going on for 23 years. That whole thing.
That adventure rider, the ADV rider official rally. Yep.
And so we'll be doing that one, and hopefully, I think we'll be there. We'll have a tent set up. We'll be able to talk to people and all that, and hopefully have a good RAM rally. In addition to that.
Oops, I think we lost audio there for a second.
Yeah. So RAM, what does RAM stand for?
Well, let me pull up. I'm gonna pull up my whiteboard and share the screen while he's trying to reconnect. How do I do that again? Oops. Well, I'm trying to do that. My skills aren't so good on here as they used to be. Let's see. Oh, there it is, right in front of me. See, I'm blind, David. Here we go. So here's RAM Rally.
Hey.
Oh, hey, you're back, David. I hear you now.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's
no. I was just pulling your website to share to our guests, the ones that are going to watch this, and let them look at it and how to find out about it. Of course, ramrally.com, which is very easy. And somehow I pulled up my browser. There we go. And David asked, "What is RAM Rally?" And of course, I just
was RAM stand for.
So it's interesting. So going back, and I'll just kind of speak for what Chris was thinking. So this was the beginning of COVID, and he was doing a lot of group rides at the time, and they didn't want to be real close together. People, a lot of people in the same spot. So, having 20 riders or so all together, he was kind of concerned about that. So there was an event that's kind of popular in Australia and other places called Rogaining, just like the hair product, And Rogaining is essentially a navigation orienteering challenge that people do on foot, to find a bunch of waypoints. And so what he did is he took that and kind of tweaked the idea and made it applicable to motorcycles. And so RAM stands for Rogaining Adventure Moto, which is a mouthful. So, RAM.
It kind of reminds me a little bit. You mentioned the hiking down in Australia, almost like geocaching, except you're not finding a cache, but you're collecting a waypoint. Geocaching, but for adventure and dual sport riders, so it makes it kind of entertaining with that.
Yeah, exactly. That's very much what it's all about. Yeah, it's very much like that. And you know, we can go into deep detail on what it's like to run that, but that's how the name came about. Rogaine Adventure Moto is how Chris came up with the word RAM. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So y'all, you're down there. You're in a hotel room. You're going into the weekend of a rally yourself right now.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I've got lots of things going on. So my son's in a high school robotics team, and I have to drive the truck to get them where they're supposed to be. So I'm actually in the hotel near that convention center, and I just unloaded them, then scurried over here so I can meet with you guys. And actually, I have somebody filling in for me down at the Palmetto ADV rally, just a buddy of mine. So yeah, lots of stuff going on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, so we're gonna definitely have to pick your brain more onto the nuts and bolts outside of this, because
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this. So is it just the rally? So I've seen on my Facebook the Palmetto rally being advertised,
Yep.
popping up. So but y'all are. It's not just the RAM rally is a component of that rally. It's like
Yeah, and
is what I'm gathering.
this is the first time I've ever done that. So basically the way that came about is the one that happened in October, you know, that one was a really great event. A lot of people were talking about that event. And Cheyenne Ledyard, who's the guy who runs the Palmetto ADV rally, he was originally supposed to run in the RAM rally and got waylaid for whatever reason. He's you know, closer to the coast. And then he and I started talking on the phone, and we said, hey, you know, why don't we make this a little event on the Friday, you know, of the Palmetto ADV rally. So we just kind of added it to the overnight camping rally, you know. So yeah.
Very cool. We
Yeah.
may we're not going to talk about it tonight. I may want to
Sure.
talk to you because we have a rally every fall in Tellico as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah, very cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've been asking everybody this, and I want to ask you this: is tell me about you getting into motorcycle riding. When did it begin for you?
You know, I tell you, the one regret I have in life, I just turned 50, so I'll be 51 in just a few months. And the one regret I have in life is I didn't get into motorcycles sooner. You know, that's my one regret. So when I was about 12 years old, you know, we were dirt poor, and I used to mow people's lawns, you know, and I
Mm-hmm.
basically traded up lawn mowers till I had this riding mower. And this guy came along, he wanted a riding mower, and he had a old Kawasaki. So this is like it might have been a Kawasaki Z400 or something from maybe the late 70s, you know, and he really wanted this riding tractor I had. And I said, oh man, I'll trade you, you know? So I took this motorcycle, had no idea even how to switch the gears. I had no idea that it went first, neutral, second, you know? So I literally just was on the bike just using the clutch because I didn't understand where neutral was. And we would just go out and ride that thing around the yard, you know, and that only lasted for a short time until my parents were like, that's it, you're going to get killed on that thing, you know, you need to you know, it just kind of disappeared, if you will. I was only maybe 12 at the time.
Yeah.
So then fast forward, you know, when I went into college, I was like, man, what I'm going to do when I get out of college is I'm going to ride from coast to coast. I'm going to do the Trans-American Trail, and I'm going to ride from coast to coast, and that's going to be my thing. And you know, I read this book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle
Oh yeah.
Maintenance, you know, and I was just like, man, this I'm going to do this thing, you know. Well, long story short, I ended up getting married right out of college, and my wife was not into the, you know, into the motorcycles, and you know, we started having kids, and you know, things, you know, went on. And so a few years back, it's been about, you know, going on 5 years, you know, I was just, I don't know what it triggered it, but I was just like, man, my kids are, you know, they're getting out of the house, they're going off to college and doing their things in life. It's time for me to do this trip, this cross country trip, you know. And so I didn't really know anything about motorcycles, but I met this guy. He just happened to be a pilot, he wanted to do a similar thing. He bought this KLR, put a lot of really nice, Farkles on it. He put like a sergeant seat on it and really nice rigid, lights and all this kind of stuff. And I looked at that bike and I was like, man, in my mind, that's the vision I have for the bike that's going to take me across country, So I bought that KLR and I just rode the heck out of that sucker, planning this cross country trip, And then when my wife was like, I don't like the idea of you riding this motorcycle, I said, well, guess what, honey? I bought you one. And I bought you an MSN Force. And if you don't have to do it, you don't have to get into it, but it's sitting right there. And it's been, I changed out all the plastics to pink, so it's like a powder pink color. And so she really got into that. And then I bought my son, it was the last child I had living at home, bought him a motorcycle. And so the whole family's been out riding. And we live actually in Roswell, Georgia, which is kind of a congested area, but we spend a lot of time in upstate South Carolina. So that's where we actually keep the motorcycle. So what we'll do typically is we'll head out on the weekend, go up there, and then run around in the upstate, and we just have a blast on those things. And so I could not get my wife, couldn't get her convinced to actually do a trip. Like I tried to convince my son to do the TAT with me, tried to convince my wife to do the TAT with me. Neither one of them would agree to that. And so what I compromised with it, I said, how about if we do the trip, but we do it in an RV? So we'll just have the bikes on the RV, and we'll just, park it, we'll ride, and we'll go back to the RV, and then we'll ride some more, and we'll just do the trip, but we won't do it, intense. We'll do it in an RV, And so I think I've got her sold on that. So we're gonna start on that adventure in September. So September 1st of this year is when we're going to start that. And then my plan is all along the way, as many, overnight camping style rallies as I can attend. I'm going to set up a little tent and just tell people about the RAM Rally, what it's all about, and just try to get people hooked on it like I am, and see if we can't, make it into a thing where people really get into it. So that's the plan. That's how I got into motorcycles, and I haven't been riding that long, but it's one of those things it's always been a dream of mine to get on a bike and ride. And if I would have known it was as enjoyable as it is, I would have done it even sooner. But yeah, so that's kind of my backstory as far as getting into motorcycles.
So
Good
something
story.
we said, yeah, great story. And what do they say? A family that rides together stays together.
That's exactly
but
right. Yeah.
Here's something I think what I heard. Your dream started with a KLR, which I find. So that was my dream, my first dual sport. David's first, and I tell everybody. Some people stay with them, but it's like everybody has started with the KLR. Some that's like that's the bike and have always stayed with the KLR. And I got a lot of buddies like that. But that's like I remember when I was dreaming, I was trying to get away from the street riding, and in my mind's eye, the dream was the picture of a KLR with hard cases riding across the world.
That's exactly it. And yeah, that's exactly it. I've got those big old Tusk, those giant, like large, steel cases, and I've got some soft luggage too. But man, it's just there's something about that bike, and I think the thing about that bike is that the people that ride KLRs and the KLR community is a great community. It's a great place for people that are getting into things because they'll answer your questions, and I have taken that bike completely apart. I mean, I've had the swing arm off and the subframe bolts out and, redid the suspension, put in, new subframe bolts, because that's one of the things that's kind of supposedly weak on that, and just been all over that bike. And it's a great bike. Mine is carbureted, and it's simple and it's straightforward. There's no electronics, and I've never had a lick of trouble. It's just been
you can't kill them.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, so our last podcast, and Alan Goodwin was on, and he has a KLR, still has it, and he has
Yeah.
over 86,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
And I think he didn't do a top end until 81,000 miles.
Wow.
81,000 miles on a single cylinder. And he raced several 24-hour Ironman races at Perry Mountain. So it's not
Yeah.
like this was a bike that, and that was his 2-up touring bike, which, so it's not like he was gentle on that thing. And they just
Mhm.
run. They just run.
Yep.
And if something goes wrong, it's something simple. It will start,
Mhm.
it'll get you home. And there in the rider support, you mentioned the support. There's so many people having, there's such a community, you're gonna find answers. I remember so I didn't have on mine, I had a Gen 1 with, and I didn't have any crash bars. So the weak spot there is the radiator. And so I remember, one of the 1,010 times I dropped that bike, I pushed, and I did this many times, is I pushed the fan into the radiator and burned up the motor on the fan. Well, I'm like, oh, and of course I was on a budget then, extreme budget, and I didn't want to
Mhm.
order a whole new fan, and here's somebody answering the question on a KLR form with this obscure other brand bike where the motor comes from, you get on eBay, that was plug and play, that was like $15, and it's
Wow.
like I wouldn't have known that
Nope.
also fits because it was a different branded bike. It's like a Suzuki Bandit or something. I don't
Mhm.
remember, but something obscure like that. I'm like, oh, well, this fan will work. It's plug and play. They're cheap.
Yep. Yep.
So that's what it's just simple stuff. The owners knew everything about that bike and how to mod it and what you need to do. And so
Yeah. Right.
well, good. I wish you much success in your journey this fall or late summer.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
What bike
Yeah.
did you get for your wife?
So she's petite. So I bought her a Z125, which kind of looks like a Honda Grom. And
Mm-hmm.
what's funny, if you see a picture of me on my bike, standing next to my bike, and her, you know, in front of the Z125, proportionally it looks correct. Like it looks like we're both riding the appropriate bike for our size.
Yeah.
But I've been talking to her about like a CRF 300L, XT 250, maybe like a KLX 230, any of those bikes that have a little more, the only problem that she has, and it won't be a problem if we're doing the RV thing, that actually, that bike is so light and easy to move around.
Mhm.
It's, you can't, I mean, I've seen people do the TAT on the Z125, but and we did put, we put, proper bark busters on it. We kind of did a, makeshift, guards everywhere, on the exhaust pipe and everything, and put some, some ADV tires on it and all that kind of stuff. So you can do a lot with those bikes, but it's not going to go more, uphill. It's not going to do 55, so what tends to happen is if we're, on a back road that's a 55-mile-an-hour road and we're on a hilly area, we're slowing down traffic, and that's not great. But she's only dropped it maybe twice, and she likes the fact that the seat height's low and it's light. And so I keep offering her, I keep showing her other bikes, and I'm like, whenever you're ready, we'll get you another bike, we'll lower it down, whatever you would need it to do to be comfortable. And so, I've given her those options, but that's what she still likes that original bike. And
Okay.
she's probably got maybe, you know, probably 1,000 miles in the seat, not a lot,
Mhm.
Yeah.
um, but and we have a great time on it though. It's still the same amount of fun. And I mean, I can't even ride it. I'm just too big to actually physically get on it. It just,
Yeah.
it basically just wants to wheelie, and it's no fun at all for me. But
I,
I
I
can
don't
see.
I don't want to get
Yeah,
off track. What's
sure.
the bike that Giorgio rides, John?
The Yamaha XT250s.
Yeah, take a
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
That's a good bike.
Yeah.
He beat John and I. We couldn't keep up with him.
And they're
Yeah,
low seat height. It's I think it was designed off of one of their trials bikes. So it's designed for low seat height.
Mhm.
And there's a lot. Those are good bikes. The KLX 230 has really intrigued me. We have here at our house a DR 200, which is my wife's, and it's also low seat height. Those are great bikes because they're light. The XT 250s and the KLX 230s, DR 200s, they're light to pick up. They drop them. They're not. They're all of them are air cooled, so they're just bait. You don't have to worry about radiators and hoses and fluids. You know, the great thing, the KLX 230 and the XT 250s are both fuel injected. I know the DR 200 is carbureted, but the fuel injected, there's no, you just crank up, you just go, you know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well,
Great two-lane cruisers.
Yeah. I got my son a KLX 230 to start on, and then now I've got a CRF 300L, which is kind of like it. I mean, you know, they're actually not that much different, but we put good suspension on the CRF 300L, so you can ride that bike, you know, and we've taken it to single tracks and stuff, and you can do a lot on that bike, you know, with some decent suspension, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, for my wife, definitely the XT 250 is one that's on the list for her to try out for sure.
The RAM.
Yes, and so tell us kind of like the format and the rules, because you've already kind of jumped ahead.
Right. So the deal is what's really different about a RAM rally than pretty much anything else that's out there is that what you're doing is you're taking a very large area, and I can give you I can do a screen share if you want. Let me actually, if you don't mind, let me do a screen share and I'll just show you what one of the rally areas looks like. If you want to turn,
are you able to do that, or do I need to make you host?
I think you need to give me permission to do that, and then I can actually.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. I'll make you the host.
Okay.
I think. Make sure everything. Yeah, I'm gonna, and then I can. You want to change host to David? Yeah. So I'll make you the host. So you should be able to. There you go.
All right. So if you guys can see that, so this is what the RAM Rally looks like up in upstate South Carolina, and you could see that it. Well, I don't know if you can see on this map easy, but it really it goes all the way from like I-85 north all the way up to North Carolina and then to Georgia, you know, on the south side. So it's a big area. So you take, you know, a 20 to 60 mile area, a big area, and you put anywhere from 300 to 500 or so waypoints. The one that's down on the coast in the Palmetto ADV rally, that one, we've got 856 waypoints on that one. So that's probably the biggest one we've had. But the thing that's interesting is that every team gets to choose where they start. So they can start anywhere on the map. Usually they start on a pin, you know, and they get to choose their route, right? So that's really kind of where the strategy comes in. So you are required to run as a team. So the rules are you have to have a minimum of 2 people and a maximum of 5. And basically if somebody shows up and they're just a solo rider, we just tell them, it can't be official, right? We can't give you an award or actually, you don't actually place if you're riding solo. You have to be riding at least 2 riders in your team to actually be official. So every team chooses where they start. They choose their route. So some people will do what we call a chalk chase, which is like a chicken chase. It's a Australian term, and they'll just start there and they'll just keep going to the nearest waypoint and they'll just do that, right? And so that is it's a very simple way. It's fun, but it's not going to put you in first place, So the guys that are real serious, what they'll do is they'll get together, with their team, and they will, kind of strategize how they're going to actually run that. Usually they're using Gaia or OnX or something like that, and they're actually figuring out. You can see where the end location is down here in Walhalla. So that's the Trailhead Tavern is where we end up. So every team gets to choose where they start. They choose how they run the race, and then everybody has to end at the same place. And so the general rules are you have to have a team of 2 to 5. Everybody gets to choose where they start. Everybody chooses how they run the race. And then you have to obey applicable laws. So you have to have a motorcycle that's licensed for on-road, licensed and insured for on-road use, and you have to obey applicable laws, right? So we're not giving you a license just to go crazy. But what we do typically is every single waypoint is on gravel or dirt. We don't put any waypoints on roads, with the exception of sometimes if there is a gas station and we want to incentivize people to get gas or get hydrated, we might put a strategic waypoint there at a gas station. If there's some really cool, unusual, historic thing or something like that, we might put a waypoint there just to make it interesting. But generally speaking, all the waypoints themselves that you can capture are, somewhere else. So if you look at, let me pull up maybe, yeah, so this is my route in Gaia. I don't know if you guys, how well you can see this, but you see all these red markers are all the potential points, and then all these ones that are kind of a light purple here. This is my route that I ran in the last rally, and so that's basically the way you do it. That's part of the strategy. So what's really interesting about the RAM Rally is that the teams are all over the place, right? So you might have 6 or 10 teams that are all running on this map, and you might see one team the entire day. And the whole event, typically it's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., 5 hours roughly. We can do all sorts of interesting things, overnight rallies, and we can block out windows when you can't get points, and we can do all that kind of neat stuff. But the typical RAM rally is usually 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and everybody chooses where they start, everybody chooses how they run, and then everybody meets at the same location to give out the awards. And so what's kind of cool about that is, you get your team together, you strategize, there's an opportunity to kind of build your team. And then, when everybody gets together, at the pub or the restaurant or whatever the final location is, then of course everybody's, talking about all the adventures they had throughout the day, so that's what kind of sets it apart from kind of your typical event.
Yeah.
And let me see if I have anything else that might be of interest here. Let's see here. Yeah, so this is what it looks like actually running in the RAM Rally. So typically you have the guy who's in front, and that person is known as the navigator, right? So he's typically got Gaia or OnX or Google Maps or something up, some way. He might even have a road book, it just depends on what you're into, right? And he's actually the guy who's navigating the team, right? And then you've got a second rider that's got their phone up with the RAM Rally Tracker app. And the way this thing works is as you get close to a waypoint, it won't actually navigate you, anything like that, but it'll tell you the distance, how many points the waypoint's worth. It will give you the direction, like compass wise, where it is. And what happens is as you get closer, it keeps getting darker and darker green. So it'll start out a very light green and it'll get darker and darker and darker. And then as soon as you actually capture that point, it'll show up here in this red circle. And then if
you have an app for that, and so for scoring purposes.
Exactly. So that's the thing that really was the thing that happened when Chris and I got together. So the thing that they were doing in Australia, which was very cool, but it had a lot of downsides. So what they did is they actually found a company out of Finland that was doing rally car events, and they were using the same GPS trackers that were in the rally cars, and they were using that for the RAM Rally events. And that was great. It worked fine. The problem is it was kind of expensive, so it was like a couple $100 to rent the equipment for each team. And then you had to ship all your GPX files to Finland, have somebody over there upload them into the system, and there's all that back and forth coordination. Then you had to get the units, use them for the event, and then send them back to the company. And I was talking to Chris, and I'm like, man, I don't know if people are going to go for that. I mean, it's cool, and they might do it once, and maybe they'll keep doing it, but if we want to really make this thing something that, a lot of people can participate in, we need to figure out a way to take that out of the equation. So what we ended up doing is we ended up building this app, and the app runs on an iPhone or runs on an Android, whichever. You can find it in the App Store, on your iPhone, or you can download it right from our website for an Android phone. And the website essentially, does all the heavy lifting as far as organizing the rallies, and you can log in, create a team, and all that kind of stuff. And then when you put the app on your phone, you just log in and it says, hey, here's your team, here's the rally you're registered for. You just click the button, it loads everything on the app. And what's neat is that the app doesn't need cell service to run, right? It'll capture all your points regardless if you're in cell range or not, and only does it need cell service to actually download the points to a leaderboard. So if you're, the one of the ideas was, when right from the beginning, when Chris was doing this over in Australia, he was like, man, I want to do this and I want to ride in it. I don't want to be a guy who has to sit back and not participate in the event. And so I did the same thing. Now, what I do, or at least what I did in October, is I watched everybody start off, made sure there was no hiccups, everybody was good. And then I waited about an hour. And then, I started running my own, event or my own team. And so, I thought that was fair, because it lowered my chance of winning, which, could be a problem if you're the guy organizing it. But also it was great fun. And then I just made sure that I was back, at the end point before everybody got back. And so I guess one of the things that's nice, I think the thing we've done pretty well is the whole organization, for one of these events usually is a big undertaking. And it's not that there's nothing to do, obviously, but we've kind of made it so, the website and the app talk together, and it makes it a lot easier for people to put these together,
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the approach. But I just,
So you're talking about the app on Google and Android. And so what's the app called?
It's called RAM Rally Tracker. So if you just go to your iPhone and you just type in RAM Rally Tracker, you'll find it on the Google. It's not in the Google Play Store yet, just because Google asked us to make some changes to it. But you can download the Android version right off our website. You don't even need to need the App Store. Just
I'm looking at the website here. So
yep. If you scroll all the way down, there should be a thing at the very bottom that says iPhone, Android. And if you click on, whichever phone you have, it'll either take you to the Apple App Store, or it'll, take you to the Android store.
Yeah.
Sorry, not the Android store. It'll just let you download it onto your phone,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Get the app, Android. I see it. Yeah. It's right there. Yep. Okay. Oh, man, it's just so cool.
Very cool.
I mean, so, when you're riding in one of these things, it feels like you're participating in a Dakar rally, because you're navigating and you've got your team running and all this kind of stuff, but it happens over, a 5-hour period, and it's happening in your backyard. You're riding maybe 100 miles or something to participate in this event. And that's kind of the whole idea, is that, I assume there's a lot of people out there that are in the similar case as I am, where, you work all week, you've got a family and a wife and all this kind of stuff, and you've got, commitments on your time, and you're like, man, I want to spend more time on the bike, So if you can just kind of carve out, 3, maybe 4 events a year, and say, all right, these are on the calendar, I'm going to do these things, and you can do it over a Saturday. It's kind of like, participating in a rally, but it's about as easy to get to it as you can possibly imagine. And you don't have to take off of work, and you don't have to get extra permission from the wife. She doesn't feel like you're not spending enough time with the family, all that kind of stuff. So that was definitely part of the equation, is to try to make something like that Chris and I could both participate in, even though we've got a family.
Yeah. Well, now you're a software developer. Did you develop this app, or did you have somebody do it for you?
I did develop the app. So, it was obviously a lot of, half of the equation is developing the app. The other half is actually running tests, like test rallies. So, we would have primarily the guys over in Australia, because they've been doing this now. It's in their 4th year, and there's a lot of guys that just do this throughout the year as their thing, And so they primarily were the testers and the ones out in the woods, saying, it works, it doesn't work, all this kind of stuff. And so, we ran a couple of rallies. There were full-blown rallies with the rally car stuff on the bike. So we just strapped the GPS trackers to the front fork, and we had the app just to make sure everything, pretty much works the same way. And then as soon as we felt comfortable that everything was working right, then we started just running the rallies, the RAM rallies with the app. And the one that I did in the upstate in October, and the one that I'm doing, at the end of April, will be, it's just the app. There's no GPS tracker that you have to rent or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea that you've got one, at least a 2-person team. So one person is the navigator, which is great. You're talking about safety. So not everybody's doing everything. You have the navigator, and when you get to the area, then you have the other rider who's doing the tracker, is actually the one that's trying to find the little sweet spot. So it goes dark green and, hey, I've captured the point, now. And then, especially if you're on comms, the other you can say, hey, I got it. And then you're like, all right, take us to the next one, and just going out and collecting. It's, picking up the pieces. And I think that's a great idea, and something really neat. I didn't know anything about this until you reached out, when I was asking for people to come on this. I didn't know anything about any of this. And
it hasn't been out that long for anybody to really know much about it. I mean, like we've probably done, I don't know, close to 20 rallies over in Australia, but no, unless you're like Googling YouTube for stuff, you never find it. And we've just done the one, in the upstate, and we'll do the next one, tomorrow. And so, like, it's not on anybody's radar screen yet, but hopefully, people will really enjoy doing these. And, the long-term vision where Chris and I are both trying to go is, we're trying to make this so it's not just us being the organizers. We're trying to make this so just anybody who has, I mean, just imagine a scenario where, you participate in these maybe, 3 or 4 times a year. And the other time you're kind of grooming what we call a challenge field, your waypoints. You're riding all the stuff in your area, and you're saying, well, here's a good waypoint, here's a good waypoint, here's one that maybe is worth more points because it's real tough. Or there's really 2 ways to do that. We either put them closer together if it's a tougher, road, or we increase the points. And so, like, every time you're on the bike, it's like you're riding with a purpose. You're like, man, I'm out, I'm either grooming my challenge field, or I'm actually running in a rally, and obviously, you can do all sorts of other stuff on your bike, but it's, it's one of those things that, for somebody who just needs a really good excuse to get on the bike, that's part of the equation, is to try to give people a really good excuse for getting on the bike,
Yeah. Well, so, what's run through my head, it's like, what a great way to get people out to go explore places they may not have ever ridden past. Because a lot of times we're just out riding. If we're doing, off pavement, it's just riding somebody else's tracks, riding routes. And, but this really brings back exploring, because you're creating the route on the fly, essentially, and it's going to take you down roads you may not have ever been on. And what I like about that discovery is, in my own life, is like getting out there and just exploring. Is I find places like, that's really cool, I want to go back there with my wife, or I'd like to come back and, spend a weekend here, just getting out off the beaten path. I think it's such a great way to do it. So I think that's really cool.
You said if you Google it or YouTube, you're not going to find much. I actually did that today and found a couple of them that I watched. One guy did exactly what you were talking about. He in his video, he said, he hadn't been riding, and he got on Facebook, and it took him to RAM. It suggested RAM. He got back into riding just to do this. which is
Yeah,
really cool. That's really cool.
yeah. That's I mean, that's great. I mean, that's a great story. I'd love to know what video that is, because that just, makes it all worthwhile,
Mhm.
Yeah. So they've been doing this now down in Australia about 4 years. And so here, a couple of years, this is really
Well,
relatively new to the
no, I
USA.
mean, literally the very first one was in October 21st of 2023. So literally just the end of last year, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then the one that's going on tomorrow is the second one, and then the third one will be at the end of April. I mean, so literally in the U.S. it is super new. Now we've got a few different people that have reached out to us. Like there's one guy in Alaska, I think a guy in Colorado that wants to do one, a guy in Alabama. So we have had a lot of people, and the thing that I'm encouraging people that get excited about this is just like, reach out to me. Like I mean, I would love to be the Johnny Appleseed of getting this format out to everybody. And so I'll do whatever it takes to kind of walk you through the process and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you
Because
piqued our interest before
Yeah,
you jumped on.
yeah,
I was
you did,
talking
you
to
did.
David. I was like, because we do a rally and we've done other events and rides over the past 5 or 6 years, and like, oh, this is something we could do in places, out in West Tennessee and in different areas. We have our own, that's more, especially David's stomping grounds over there, but you know. So this is just really intriguing. I was looking on the website, and of course, you have listings of events across the U.S. and places, and that's a great way for everybody to, if they want to see where it's at. So
yeah,
Well, I wonder if we should turn the hobo ride into one of these, John.
well, that's certainly an idea, so here we are. I just pulled up the screen again. So yeah, here's all the different, and so some of these states are no rallies yet. So these are opportunities for other people,
yep,
listeners to create, and I think it's just a great fun thing. I mentioned,
Yeah.
sometimes we need incentives to go out and ride. So
mm-hmm.
to give you an example of that, and last year, um, and I've tried to drum up some interest, but I never got the format down right. But KTM had a World Rally thing, and for like a month, or maybe it was a week or something, a week, you were to each day, if you went out and rode and used their one of the apps, the Riser app, I think it was, and record your ride and upload it, you entered a chance to win something. So each day, but you had to do a different route each day and such and such. And they had some weird rules. It was just an excuse for me. So I made a point, because I was like, well, I got a chance to win something. I may not win anything, but it got me on the bike every day that week.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. And so sometimes that's what we need, is we just need a little, you're sitting around the house and what I want to do. It's like, so weekend's coming up. What can I do? And we need that excitement.
Didn't Chin win a jacket? You remember we rode with Chin out at in Kentucky, and he did that.
Wow.
He rode like Iron Butt to win a jacket. You
Yeah,
remember
well,
that?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things out there to do that,
Yeah.
but I think there's a lot of potential. So I think what you were mentioning the GPS trackers that they were using. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, because they use that in a lot of races out west, desert racing and stuff, that's impractical. Because I was envisioning, when I was thinking about this today before the podcast, I'm like, how are they tracking this? Because that's a lot of hassle. But this app takes out all of that. It's like it does all the work, because
Right.
as an organizer, you don't want to be sifting through 1,000 GPX files and seeing, do they actually get to the waypoint or not. You want it.
Yeah, you don't want to call somebody a liar. You don't want to have to look at all of their pictures in their phone and go, okay, check that off. It's like right there.
Yeah. And so here's an interesting thing. So I did a self-guided race. It wasn't race. It was at a club that I'm a member of. is they had an Ironman loop, 26 miles, and you just track, you hit start on your, your tracker, whatever GPS you're using, and you'd ride the loop, and then you'd stop it and you'd send the file in and tell you the time on it to see what place you came in. Well, a lot of us were getting disqualified because every GPS will track a little bit different. And so mine was saying I didn't do 26 miles, I did 25.2 miles or something like that, which means I was taking I was getting off track and cheating because it was so self-guided. And I was like, but it happened to a lot of people. And I know I didn't get off the course. So I was disqualified, which no big deal. I was just doing it for fun. I wasn't going to win anything, because I'm a slow rider, compared to some of those guys. But I really thought, when I thought about it, it's like everybody was using a different GPS. Some people had it set to maybe hiking or bicycling or cars, so it goes by breadcrumbs. Some of them may do the intervals at a half second or 1 second. So there's variances is what I'm getting at. And your app, if everybody uses your app, that app, there's no variance. It's like, this is what we're doing. Everybody's the same.
Right. Yep. And the code, the actual code that does the scoring is literally identical on the iPhone and the Android. I mean, there's a little bit, the phone differences, there's just a little, very slight variance in the way they look just because of the different phones, but the actual scoring logic is literally exactly the same. And so
wow. Nice.
Yeah. So it's and that's one of those things. I looked at some people that they were doing a very similar thing where they were like, they take pictures and then I guess they'd embed the location in the picture, and then somebody has to go back and kind of figure out if they actually hit all the things. And the thing you're doing there is you're getting off the bike and you're taking a picture, or maybe you're taking a picture as you're riding. I don't know, what level you're doing.
There's a lot of work to that. And that's how so you mentioned the taking the picture. That's how the tour of Idaho went, which, and of course the tour of Idaho, I think last year's the last year, or this year's going to be the last year. I think last year was the last year of that, because the organizer, and that's, I don't know if you're familiar with it, look it up. It is hardcore, self-guided. You don't win anything, but very few people there finished it because you're having to do single track of a couple hundred miles every single day for like 2 weeks straight up in Idaho. But and you had to have enough gas on you. You had to be self-sufficient and have at least 250-mile range. So you're riding a little dual sport, the oversized tank. But anyhow, that was the thing. And I'm like, that's a lot of behind the scenes work for that person, because you'd have to have the selfie picture. And, it's like, it would be easier if you had something like your app, which you just would send in. You wouldn't have to have a picture to verify you're at the right place. And that was the way they did it, through waypoints. You gather points, and then you have challenge sections. Like if you went off trail to a certain viewpoint, which you add time to your day, you get so many points, and you have to hit certain waypoints, and that's when you do the selfie picture. But what you developed, I think, has a lot more potential outside of RAM rallies as well.
I'll tell you, one of the things that you fixed, we almost did that at our rally last year, but it turns out the national parks, if you send people out and they take a picture in a national park, you have to be bonded in the park because they say you're making money off of their, so that's great not having to do that.
Yeah, you're just out riding. It's a waypoint, it's a spot. You're just going over that. Yeah.
And the thing I like is not having to stop. I mean, when you're actually, when you're riding with purpose and you've got your, your cadence down and everything, you don't want to be getting off the bike every 10 minutes. That messes up the whole experience,
Oh, that's my style of riding. So I went out.
I'm like, stop, John, stop.
2 weeks ago, I went out. I was like, I'm just going to go out for an hour, and it turned into about 5.5, 6 hours and about 160 miles, and a lot of it was getting into some rough off-road and creek crosses I was not expecting to do. But I was like, I just want to go down here. I want to go check this place out. I hadn't been there in a long time, and you just want to keep going. And I didn't stop yeah, I wasn't until I was halfway home before I ever stopped and got something to drink because I was expecting to be out an hour. I
Mhm.
didn't have any water, nothing with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just having fun. Well,
Yeah.
fantastic. So we've shared your website. We know how to get involved with you. Y'all got the Palmetto Rally coming
Mhm.
up this weekend. What's the next event on? What's coming up next after this?
Well, the next one after that is
Is that the
the
RDV?
no there's should be one before that. So that's the one that's the upstate South Carolina one. That's the one I showed the map for. So
Yep.
that's the one that I really like. I'm grooming that track or whatever the list of waypoints constantly, and I absolutely would love you guys, anybody who's watching, to come visit that one. I'll be there. I'll be running in it. I'll be meeting everybody afterwards. It's gonna be a really. I mean, it was a really great event last time. We had a really good turnout. I think we had 6 teams last time. We'll probably have closer to 10 this time. 12 is kind of where you want to. I mean, I don't know if you necessarily want to cap it, but there is a limit to kind of how many people can show up at a restaurant at one time and all that without making prior arrangements. So I stopped by and talked to the guy at the village, the Trailhead Tavern, and just told him what we're doing and all that kind of stuff. So he's aware that we're showing up. But anyway, this event here, I think is phenomenal. I mean, there's a lot of good riding. There's a really good mix of gravel roads for people that have like bigger bikes, that whatever, want to ride with a larger team. There's stuff that's closer to North Carolina that's more challenging riding. There's a lot of stuff going on, and every person is figuring out their own route. So you can certainly dial in the choose your own adventure, as far as the type of riding you like to do. And so yeah, I would love to meet people if you happen to be near the upstate. And this event is roughly a month away. So um, you know
Yeah, I'm
and
looking at yeah. And so I see you're on the screen here is what the app looks like. Yeah, it's just a
Mhm.
great little tracker. So yeah,
Yeah, and I didn't want to go down the road of providing navigation, because honestly, that's a skill that everybody really needs to know and learn and kind of hone, how you actually navigate on a motorcycle. I mean, that itself is valuable just to learn
yeah,
that and get used to it, because after you've done a few things and you've kind of gotten used to it, you find that you'll use that well, knowledge all the time. Whenever you're planning a trip, you won't be, you'll just pop into your app, whether it be Gaia or Onyx or whatever you use, and you'll be like, I know how to do this. I've already done this. I'm up to speed.
well, you mentioned something so important. You say that's navigation is a skill that riders need to develop, and I'm amazed. And it's not a criticism; it's just the nature of our world today. Unfortunately, is so many people have been at our events, or I've been at other events where they don't know, they don't have any way to navigate, and they're like, well, I just download this app, I don't know how to use it, and they think it's going to be like a route, like in your car, when you are going somewhere, it's going to route you like left turn, right turn. It's like, no, routes and tracks are different things. Tracks are breadcrumbs,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
you need to know how to navigate, whether you're doing tracks or you're navigating through routes, and how to click a waypoint and navigate to that. And it is a skill. It is a skill, and to know that there are specific apps that are better suited. And sometimes there's not a unicorn app out there. I mean, I'm running, my primary unit's a Garmin, that I'm running, but I will also oftentimes have an Android phone or an older Android phone running locust maps. I've got the offline maps because I've got one that's zoomed in close to where I'm at following a track, but sometimes I want to navigate off track. So I've got zoomed out on the other one, and looking back and forth, and I'm having to do that on the fly. You're trying to
Right.
not run into a ditch on a dirt road, and also trying to figure out where you're going next without stopping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Man, you'll run into times where there's a tree, a big honking tree across a dirt road, and it's a sheer
Yeah,
cliff on one side, sheer cliff on the other side. And like if you don't know how to get back or around where you're trying to go, that you've got to go
Everybody's
all the way,
over.
wherever you came from, and or try to get your bike over that tree, but I mean, that happened to me one time on the KLR. I'm like, this is a huge tree. There's no way I'm going over it, you know?
yeah.
Um, so it's a really nice skill to have. And once you start downloading the apps to your phone, you've got them handy. If you're out of cell range, you still, you're not in trouble. You can still figure out, where you need to go and all that. And then of course, being able to record your tracks and all that kind of stuff and tell other people how to do what you did and how to get there. It's just it's a good skill to have, and it's a great way to build relationships with other people that are trying to ride in the same area. It's
Well,
just
you mentioned the
kind
tap.
of
Yeah,
yeah.
you're going to have to know that because I'll give you an example. So I'm real near the tap where I live. And so part of my riding, I will be off and on parts of the tap all the time when I'm riding locally. And I know a section of the tap that there was in the last 2 years, there were two different bridges that were being repaired. So you get down this long road and the bridge is out. Well, you're going to have to, if you don't know how to navigate and reroute, you're like, what do I do? It's like, I mean, that's if I mean, this is going to happen the whole trip, and some people really don't. They're confused and they don't. It's like you need to know how to read a map, and it might be a digital map on your phone or a Garmin, but you need to know how to do that and how to get around and search roads and figure this out.
Yeah,
because there's going to be bridges out. The county's going to be doing road work. There'll be a tree across the road, as you mentioned. There'll be a creek that's flooded.
Yep.
We've been doing these rallies for a while, and I would say percentage-wise, 15% of the people are up to speed on how to do what you guys are talking about. The rest of them are following somebody they know that's
well, that's what it is a lot of times, and this is fine. Whatever it takes to get somebody into this sport is what's important. But I'll have a lot of people that are brand new and they're like, well, I don't know how to navigate. Can you put me with somebody? So, I mean, and that's fine. That's what we're doing. We're the host of an event. It's like, I know somebody, but, I'll put you with I'll put you with somebody. You just follow them. They'll take, but that's,
but here, I've never thought about this. You mentioned the tree. So let's say somebody's going along and a tree's falling. They don't know how to navigate. They might put themselves in danger trying to get because they don't have any other options. I never thought about that. So everybody really should be able to.
Well, I didn't know. I was that person. My first rally.
Yeah,
I didn't have a navigation app. And I was asking her, what are y'all using? And I couldn't, but it was like no cell service there. I couldn't download the app. So I just had to follow people. And the app that I was using then was horrible. Like the screen wouldn't move. So I'd have to, while I'm riding with one finger, with my glove off, trying to swipe it the whole time. And I didn't know that there was better apps out there. I didn't know you could pay a few dollars, to the Play Store and get, a real one without the ads that would work offline. And, because
David
it's not Google Maps.
Yeah, like what you said a minute ago, David. Now knowing how to do it, if I'm going someplace to a city, I don't use the vehicles, tell turn by turn. I'll actually just real quick put up my own tracks and then use my track to go there. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, very cool.
Well, so anyways, I know you're a busy man. You got a lot going on this weekend you've shared, but I'm really appreciate that you came on our podcast and and that you've shared about this. You really sparked our interest, and
we want to talk again.
Yes, we will be talking again. So again, for all of our listeners out there, ramrally.com. We put the website up if you're reviewing it, but if you haven't, it's ramrally.com. There's the event this weekend, the Palmetto ADV event, but there's another one the end of this next month and also in May in Tellico, the RDV. But you can find out about this on ramrally.com. For us, our rally's the first weekend in October. Go to letstakearide.com to order your tickets and for details on our rally. It's also in Tellico Plains. You can find us on YouTube at Let's Take a Ride, little L Big T. On Facebook, Let's Take a Ride. So anyways, thank you again, David, for coming on the show, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Well, Jon, thank you so much for having me. David as well. I mean, it's just an absolute pleasure being on here. And if you guys ever will have me back, I'm happy to join. And I'd love to talk about, setting up a tent or something at your rally, and just kind of introduce the sport,
Sure.
Good time. So absolutely. Well, thank you guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.